Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today, we would like to conduct our presentations. Now, today, the group will present the presentations, and I hope all of the member also should be participate in these presentations. And at the end of the questions, you may respond and asking the questions. Okay, now without further ado, would like to present our presentations with the first speaker, Nurul Azmar, and then the second, me Firman, and then that Mirna, and then the last one will be Fatimah. Now, for the first speakers, the time is yours.
Thank you, Bang Firman. So here, our topic is about second language acquisitions and language teachings. Me, as the first speaker, would like to introduce you first to the meaning of acquisitions and the learning first. Could you go to the next slide, Bang? Bang Firman, could you go to the next slide? Okay, thanks. Then here is the difference between language acquisitions and language learning. Actually, some people think that when we acquire some things, it's mean that we learn some things. But actually, acquire and learning here is different. Is which is these two completely different terms, but more than that, they are processes that use distinct cognitive level. Even when the topic has been explained time and time again, and since it's a common discussion among teachers, the terminology is still misused. They are more often than not treated as synonymous. If we break down the meaning of the term, we will be able to understand it a little better. Its main acquisitions is the act or process of gaining a skill, habit, or quality. And learns mean to gain knowledge or understanding or of a skill in by study, instructions, or experience. Thus, it's important to rectify that as different as those two concepts may sound, they are not upside. One does not include the other. On the contrary, they are complementary. The ultimate goal would be a language acquired through a properly guided learning process. Next slide, please. Here, if you can see in the table, how we acquire a knowledge or a language and how we learn along a knowledge or a language. If you could see the example like when child try to know something from her mother, it means she or he acquire their first language or first knowledge that he know from her mother. And for learning, it's such a formal knowledge of language. It could be at school. And for the acquisitions also, it's mean that we pick up a language, but for learning, we know about a language. When we acquire a language or a knowledge, it's mean in acquisitions, we did in subconscious, but in learning, we did it in conscious. Um, what we got from acquisition is implicit knowledge, but in learning, it's explicit knowledge. And in acquire a language or a knowledge, it could be informal, but no. I mean, formal teachings that it doesn't help anything here. But in learning, formal teachings is really help. Refers to the language. No, I mean refers to the language. There is an important distinction between language acquisition and language learning. As you may well have noticed, children acquire their mother tongue through their interaction with their parents and their environments around them. Their need to communicate pave the way for language acquisition to take place. As experts suggest, there is an innate capacity in every human being to acquire language. Next slide, please. Now, we need to know what is second language acquisitions. In second language learning, language plays an institutional and social role in the community. It functions as a recognized means of communications among members who speak some other language as their native tongue. In foreign language learning, language plays no major role in the community, and it is primarily learned in the classroom. The distinction between second and foreign language learning is what is learned and how it's learned. Next slide, please. Then, uh, what are the studies of second language acquisition? First, it's how second language are learned. Then second, how learner creates a new language system with limited exposure to second language. Then why must second language learner do not achieve the same degrees of proficiency in a second language as they do in their native language? And last, why some learner appear to achieve native like proficiency in more than one language? Next slide, please. This is how the learner acquire a second language. First, by making use of existing knowledge of native language, general learning strategies, or universal properties of language to internalize knowledge of the second language. Then, by which the learner construct reflecting the learner current second language knowledge. And last, by the learner to make use of existing knowledge to cope with communication difficulties. The next slide will be explained by Brother Firman. Bang, time is yours.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to continue the materials about the language learner. As we have known and been elaborate before from the first speakers about the differences between language acquisition and language learning. Now, we would like to see the impact to the language learner itself. First point is individual difference affect L2 acquisitions. This may include first the rate of development and then the ultimate level of achievement because a language learner may be mixed with the level of English also. So these kinds of level will be affected in their acquisitions in acquiring the language. And then the second one, learner differs with regards to variable relating to cognitive, affective, and social aspect of human being. And then the one is fixed factors such as age and language learning aptitude are beyond external control. Variable factors such as motivations are influenced by the external factors such as the social setting and by the actual course of L2 development. As you can see here, that why on the table they're providing you when the acquisition and learner is very different, and then such factors that affected to the learners to acquiring the second language and then also develop their second language in acquisition. And then the fourth is cognitive style refers to the way people perceive, conceptualize, organize, and recall information. And then the last one is field dependent learners. Dependent learners operate holistically. They like to work with others. Field independent learners are analytically and prefer to work alone. And then let's see the theories of second language acquisitions. First, universalist theory that defines linguistic universals from two perspectives. The first perspective is the data-driven perspective, which look at surface features of a wide range of language to find out how language vary and what principle underlie these variations. The data-driven approach considers systems, external factors, or input as basis. And then the second one is the theory-driven perspective, which looks at in-depth analysis of the properties of language to determine highly abstract principle of grammar. System internal factors are those found in cognitive and linguistic process. And then the second theory is universalist theory, and then still continued. Several characteristics of the data-driven approach include the following. First, it has language typology which delves into patterns which exist among language and how they vary in human language. Then the second one is language universal focus on what is common, for example, subject, verb, and object. And then the third one is implicational universal, which refer to properties of language, such as all language have vowels, without looking at any other properties. And then next is several characteristics of the theory-driven approach, including the following. First, language is quite through innateness, and then certain principles of human mind are biological determinant. And then the next one is also there are sets of principles and conditions where knowledge of language develops. And then the last one is universal grammar is seen as parts of the brain. And now theory of second language, acquisition, behaviors theory. It dominated both physiology and linguistics in the 1915s. This theory suggests that external stimuli or extrinsics can elicit an internal responses, which in turn can elicit an external stimuli or intrinsic that lead to external responses. First is the learning process have been described by SRR, and then theories is a process forming stimulus response reward chains. Decisions come about because of the nature of the environment and the nature of the learners. And then the second one is the environment provides the stimuli and then learners provides the responses. Comprehensions of productions of certain aspect of language and the environment provide the reward. The last one is the environment plays a major role in the exercise of the learner's ability. Since it provides the stimuli that can shape responses selectively, rewarding some response and not others. Still, when the learner learns a language, this learning includes a set of stimulus responses, rewards, or is SRR chains. Imitation provides the learners with a repertoire of appropriate productive responses. The learners learn to imitate or approximate the productive response provided by the environment. And then there is also the characteristic of human and non-human learners include the ability to first respond to stimuli in certain way, and then intuitively evaluate the real potential response. Sorry, it's mistyping. Is it four, not one? And then the other one is extract the important parameters that made up the stimulus response or positive reward chains. And then the last one is generalize these parameters to similar situations to form classes SRR chains. And then still the nativist theory views language acquisition as initially determined. Theories believe that human beings are born with a built-in device of some kinds that predispose them to acquire language. This predisposition is a systematic perception of language around us, resulting in the constructions of an internalized system of language. Nativists are on the opposite end of the theoretical continuums and use more of rationalist approach in explaining the mystery of language acquisition. As well as Chomsky in 1965 claimed the existence of initiate properties of language that explain a child's mastery of his or her native language in short time, despite the highly abstract nature of the rules of language. And then the next one is this initiate knowledge, and then as well as according to Chomsky, is embodied in a little black box of a so-called a language acquisition device or LED. And then also the theories of McNeil's on 1866 described the LED as consisting of four initial linguistic properties. And then the first one is the ability to distinguish speech sounds from other sounds in the environment. And then the second one is the ability to organize linguistic event in the various classes that can be refined later. And then the other one is knowledge that only certain kinds of linguistic system is possible and other kinds are not. And the last one is also the ability to engage in constant evaluations of the developing linguistic system in order to construct the simplest possible system out of the linguistic data that are encountered. And then the last is nativists have contributed to discoveries of how the system of child language works. Theories such as Chomsky, McNeill, and others help us to understand that child's language at any given point is a legitimate system in its own right. And then next slide will be presented by Mirna. It's yours.
Okay. Next is theories of second language acquisition. Cognitivist theory views human beings as having the innate capacity to develop logical thinking. This school of thought was influenced Pickett's work, where he suggests that logic is the underlying factor for both linguistic and non-linguistic development. First, the process of association has been used to the means by which the child learns to relate what is said to particular objection or even in the environment. The branch by which certain associations are made is meaning, the extent and accuracy the associations made are said to change in time the child measure. The second, cognitivists say that conditions for learning language are the same conditions that are necessary for any kind of learning. The environment, the material that the child can work on. The third is cognitivists view the role of feedback process as important for effective reasons, but non-influential in terms of modifying and or altering the sequence of development. Okay, next. Language learning as a cognitive process. First, language involves internal representations that regulate and guide performance. The second, processing activates certain nodes in memory when appropriate input in present. Activates a learn response. The third is a large collection of nodes. The fourth, control processing is not a learned response. It is an activation of nodes in sequence. The fifth, skills are learned and managed only after the earlier use of concepts have been used. The sixth, learner structure contain both declarative knowledge, the word of language internalized, memorized chunk of language, and procedural knowledge flow of the language system to employ strategies. Next. Social interaction theory supports the development of language comes from the early interaction between infants and caregivers. Social interaction stress there are the importance of a child's interaction with parents and other caregivers, and then the importance of mothers, the third contribution of context and word knowledge, and the last is importance of goals. Glue 98 claims that learners have to be pushed in their negotiation of meaning to produce comprehensible output. The classroom context needs to provide adequate opportunities for target language use to allow learners to develop competence in the target language. Okay, then comprehensible output provides opportunity for contextualized meaningful of language. Social interaction believe that first it emerged from the social role that language plays in human interaction. Second, the environment plays a key role in development. The third is adults in the child's linguistic environment are viewed, are viewed as involved in language acquisition. The last is social interaction, a key element in language processing, and input from social interaction provides a model for negotiation opportunity. Okay, next. theories, views of learning and language teaching were formed in the 2 decades following the Second World War. Those drew on general theories of learning propounded by psychologists such as Waston. Second is decade in 1973 introduced three general principles of language learning derived theories. First, according to the law of exercise, language learning is promoted when the learner makes active and repeated response to stimuli. Second is the law of effect emphasis the importance of reinforcing the learner's and correcting non-target like ones. The third is principle of shaping claims that learning will proceed most smoothly and rapidly if complex behaviors are broken down into their component parts and learned bit by bit. Okay, next, continue by Fatima.
Okay, I want to continue about language learning. Underlying this principle was assumption the language learning, that any other kind of learning, took the form of habit formation, a habit consisting of an automatic response received by a given stimulus. Learning was seen to take place intuitively through analogy rather than analysis. According to behaviorist theory, the main impediment to learning was interference from prior knowledge, and then proactive inhibition occurs when all habit got in the way of attempt to learn new ones. In such case, the old habit had to be unlearned so that they could be replaced by the new ones. And then the notion of unlearning made little sense of learners did not need to forget their L1 in order to acquire an L2. For this reason, behaviorist theory of L2 learning emphasizes the idea of difficulties. Difficulty is defined as the amount of effort required to learn a L2 pattern, and the degree of difficulty was believed to depend primarily in the extent to which the target language pattern was similar to or different from native language pattern. And next, cognitive developments. The cognitive dimension is natural succession process that occur developmentally from birth to the end of schooling of years. An infant is entirely built to process through interacting with loved ones in the language of the home. This is important stepping stone to build on a cognitive development continuum. And then it is important that cognitive development continues through a shared first language at least through the elementary years. And then extensive research has demonstrated that children who rest their hold in L1 by around age 11 to 12 enjoy cognitive advantage over monolingual. And next, academic developments. Academic developments include all schoolwork in language, art, maths, the science, and social studies for 8th grade level. With its succeeding grades, academic work dramatically Hence, the vocabulary, sociolinguistic, and discourse dimension of language to higher cognitive level. Academic knowledge and conceptual development transfer from first language to second language. It is most efficient to develop academic work through the student first language. Will teachers tackle language during the other period of the school day through meaningful academic content? In early decades, schools in the United States emphasized teaching second language as the first step and postponing the teaching of academics. Research has shown that postponing or interrupting academic development is likely to promote academic value. And next, in conclusion, the learner or the teacher. The learner needs the first expectation of success and the confidence to take risk and make mistakes, and then a willingness to share and the last the confidence to ask for help and a conquest of the need to readjust. And then the teacher needs the first respect for and interest in in learner language, culture, talk, and intention. And the second, the ability to record ground points, strength, and potential. And the last, the appreciation that mistakes are necessary to learning. And the confidence to maintain breaks, cleanness, and variety and to match. And the last, to stimulate and challenge. Okay, I think enough for me. Nurul Azmar.
Okay, thank you. Now, yeah. Okay, thank you for everyone. Now we would like to open the discussions. Now we only limited with only one question, so we can continue to the next group. Is there any questions? We would like to welcome you. Yes, thank you. Guys, if you're there.
Okay, I want to ask Bang Firman.
Yeah, go on.
For the last explanation of Kak Fatimah, I hear the expectation of success of the student. So I want to ask if the real life expectation of success of student is no success. So what should the learners do or the teacher do to be expectation of success is real in learning second language?
Okay, thank you for the question. Maybe Chut, you want to respond first? And then after that, I will continue about to your response. But maybe Mirna or Fatimah want to start first. Okay, maybe I will try to respond it first. So your question is about the expectations of success, right? So your question is, does it real is it real happen
That's
in
my
reality
question.
or what?
Could you repeat your
In reality.
question?
Mhm. So do you believe that in reality that it's not work or it's not make sense, because when you say student is will never get the expectation of success when they in their language, in their English language acquisitions, right? Is that true or not?
Yes, is that true?
Okay, so I think I will try to respond it first. The first is you have to understand first the word's expectations, right? If you can't see the word expectation, is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. So I think it's nothing wrong by being expected. For example, like this, as well as you are now in magister programs, and then you would like to expect to be passed or to be graduated in less than 2 years, right? So you expect that. So by having the expectations of that you will be graduate less than 2 years, so you start to learn more, and then you start to finish it all what it required, and then you believe that if there is an obstacle or struggling, and you are struggling for that more. So that's fine, because we have to believe that some things will happen. I think when the student expects uh, have that expectation of the success, it's nothing wrong with that, because they believe that they will success at the end. So that what motivate them to learn the English, or uh, to be interested in language acquisition itself. So whether or not the student success or not, so I think we can't evaluate, because as you know in educations we will uh, it just the early investments, right? And then long term's the investment. So we can't just see the value like the trader. When you see, okay, now I would like to acquiring a language, so this is my first investment, so it's long term investment. So you just can't, or we can't just say that you will be not success by having a higher expectations of that, because when you will see that you are successful or not, at least maybe on the your second years, and then when you are at least at least when you or understand what the speaker say, I think that being a success, expectation of success is not mean like when you start to acquiring a language and then at the end you will become a native. I think it's not. At least when you understand, when the first day you just comes with no nothing, and then the second week you at least know what the speaker say. At least you already understand about the greetings and then how to greet people. I think that will be your first success by doing that, and then because of that you really have the greatest expectation of success later on. Okay, I think that's for me, and then maybe Nurul or the others member would add.
I'd like to add some more what I know about success and expectations. If I'm not misunderstood the questions, according to me here, everyone has our criteria on success actually. It means that when we expect some things, when we got even only 5% of what we expect, it means we got what we got expect. It means that it means here that we success to get our actions. For example, like Bang Firman said before, when somebody talk to us and we understood no full of the sentence, or it's some of the word of sentence that we have made. I mean, here we not completely understood of the sentence. So we have here. reports on their success maybe. That's according to me.
Okay, thank you. I think mm, this is the end of our presentations, and then thank you for your participation. And I would like to continue with the next group. Thank you, everyone. See you. Bye.